Make sure you're on time, punctuality. Build mutual trust. Don't chew people on and speak to them at the same time. They'll put them off. Share your honest views. Try to look them straight in the eye when you're talking to them. When you're talking to me. Look presentable, neat and tidy. Do not do things that will not be appreciated and admired. Okay? So, the differences of these, I've left it in your books or in your slides. I'm not going to go through them, I've gone through most of them. I will highlight this though. You have friendships that are usually intense and binding through your kinship one type. We have relationships built on networks, yes, but our friendships are intense but not binding. Right? We can change friends fairly frequently. Sometimes we don't care if we don't see, our brothers or sisters for many years. We don't care. Whereas you do. Okay? So you have to remember there's a bit of that. You're very diplomatic when you talk, and try and explain things. We tend to be honest and ethical. We tell it as it is. And sometimes that's hard for you to take. And sometimes I get up here, and particularly other groups that I've done this with, I've had feedback from people when they fill out the evaluation form is, you are very aggressive in your facilitating style. Well, yes, I know that. That's deliberate. That's to make you think. Stand up and think. Okay? But I always try and apologise at the end of any training week and say, if I've offended anyone, then please, I apologise. I'm not here to offend. I'm here to raise issues, get you to think, raise your consciousness. You predominantly have an autocratic management style around the country. We have predominantly a non-autocratic or a democratic style. You go to any of our countries now. We have changed over time, and you will too, as you start to manage people and people become equal and gender diversity kicks in, and we start to do the sort of things that other countries do. You'll have to do that to fit in with the rest of the world. Okay, any questions on this? Any comments? Has anyone had any difficulties dealing with any non-natural? That's good if you haven't, that's great. Maybe you haven't had that many. Yes.
PHA is supposed to do that to others. Sometimes when you address boss, like you feel like you are superior and you are looking down on others. So you should be discouraging this kind of advices in addressing one another.
It's interesting, your Director of Public Health actually went through the training, the executive development training that I run, and I talk about this in that training also. But I go back to what I said the other day. If you call someone a boss, you go to, they act like that boss. They're not a leader, they're a boss. They act that way. If you call them that, They think they're a boss, so they have to act like a boss. Once it's planted in your mind takes over and it affects your body. So if you call me a boss, I'm thinking you're seeing me act like a boss, not a leader. Okay? And that's what he's learned. You know, that he's a leader, he's not a boss. He leads people. And same with you all. No one's a boss. The old language, boss, superior, subordinate, that's old colonial language. And you've persevered with it. You've kept it going. You know, the modern language now is team leader, you know, or director of public health, team leader, team member, teams. Okay? You need to think about it in those terms. Okay? And eventually that old language will disappear. Because younger people won't put up with it either. It just doesn't sound right to young people.
There are some non-nationals that don't believe in God. Like we can be a Christian country, so when we, like for instance now in the morning we ask someone to give a word of prayer,
Yes.
they will not give up with us. So we have to be mindful of that.
No, that's true. But you have to be careful doing that too. Be careful doing, you know, nothing wrong with having a prayer in the morning, except you have to know who's in the audience. Right? I remember doing it when I first started running these programs in 2015. I think it was down West Sepik. West Sepik in Panama. I ran the session, I started the session asking for a prayer. And I said, please everyone stand up. And then two people walked out the door. Oh, that's strange. Maybe they're not Christian. Anyway, they walked out the door. We had the prayer. They sat down. They came back in again. So at morning tea, I went up to them and asked them, I'm sorry, can you explain why you walked out the door? Oh, no, we're sorry. You know, you were going through a Christian ritual, but we're Muslim. We don't believe in that, so we walked out of courtesy, out of respect. Be careful who's in your audience. Right? That's one of the things I didn't do this week. Normally I would check to see, you know, is everyone happy that we have an open prayer? Yeah, because different countries, different value sets, etc. Okay? I worked in Afghanistan for 3 years. You know, and I worked with the equivalent of their public service commission. They call it the civil service commission. And I was responsible for developing teams who would go out and review organisations. So the first week I got there, I went into the Civil Service Commission, and I went up to a woman that was working on the team, put my hand out to shake her hand. She said, oh no, we don't shake hands. Well, that was a learning. Then I had to ask the other fellows, you know, she explained, you know, in our culture, women do not shake the hands of a man they do not know, and they certainly do not do it unless they have a male member of their family next to them. That's good. I learned the hard way. You know, and then I can repeat a whole range of things that I've learned going through it. But you know, unless you're aware of each other's culture, when I worked in Afghanistan, the other thing that I had to do was, most people here don't speak English. So I had to run sessions. I used to run training sessions and have 2 interpreters. Right? There were 2 languages spoken in Afghanistan. One is Dari, one is Pashto. So I had 2 interpreters. And as I would run something, one would talk in Dari, the other then would talk in Pashto. So everyone in the room got what was going on. Now you can imagine, you know, one session would take nearly all day. By the time you got through it, you know, because they would ask questions, whether it's in Pashto, they would ask, you would have to translate it into English, I'd have to translate it back, they would translate it back to the person. Took a long time. Again, that was a good learning for me too. It meant it meant that I had to change the way I presented. You know, the other thing that happened to me is people heard that I was running some of these courses, and they said, oh, they came to me one day and said, there's people from other organisations, they want to come to the training. I said, well, you know, they can, but we're already full. They said, you know, what happens there on every Friday is their holy day. So it's equivalent of a Sunday in the Muslim. So every Thursday afternoon, after lunch, in the Civil Service Commission, the Commission put on lunch for all the staff, and then we would all go into like an auditorium, okay? And they would always have 3 speakers, you know, local speakers or international speakers. And one week after I was there, I was asked, can you please come and do a presentation? Yeah, I'm happy to do that, but what do you want to know? Oh, you think of something. Oh, okay. So I sat down with my 2 interpreters, and I said, you know, what would be easy? You know, what can we get across? So they said, just talk about your lessons in how to manage, how the West manages versus how we manage in Afghanistan. Anyway, I presented it. It went for 3 hours. You know, backwards and forwards, through interpreters. You know, and people asking lots of questions, all going backwards and forwards. 3 hours. I presented, you know, only to the Civil Service Commission staff. There was only about 30 of them in the room. That was that week. The next week, would I please repeat it? I walked into the room, there's 100 people in the room. We went through it again. And then I got asked by the Commissioner, we've heard, you know, people are so interested, could you please run it again? So we ran it, and this time the auditorium was full. Not just with the Civil Service Commission, we had other departments, people from different provinces all came. Now I had nearly close to 500 people in the room, in the auditorium. You know, so you can imagine. It's a very slow process, but a lot of people got a lot of lessons, learned a lot of lessons out of it, which is good. Unfortunately, it didn't continue. The war continued, and you know the history now. Now they're trying to rebuild themselves under the Taliban. It's not easy. And some of those people I trained had to get out of the country. Even my interpreters had to get out because they had worked with under the Taliban. Anyone that had worked with Australians, you know, New Zealand or US or British forces, you know, they were going to be killed. And their families, not just them, their families too. So the 2 interpreters, because I worked a lot with them over 3 years, I actually sponsored them out of Afghanistan. One works now in Sydney in New South Wales, the other one works in Germany. They and their families moved, but sponsored them out. But there were still some others, you know, that I correspond with, still over in Afghanistan. They all still wish we could come back and continue where we left off. You know, and one day, you know, the Taliban will realise they need to bring people back. Just some experience. Okay. All right. Lunch is not here yet. Any other questions on anything we've talked about?
It was